But however, I found their bodies and their wounds were healed.
October 13th, 2024, to Harris, New Mexico. Deputies arrived to a small rural home following a 911 call for a welfare check.
Okay, so I live at 51 Young Road, and the property adjacent to me I also own, but I rent to a nice family that has been living there for some years. They come and help me with the chores around the ranch here, and none of those were done today. We heard like several gunshots about an hour and a half ago, and then about 10 minutes later, a single gunshot. It's odd that the father who does the chores over at my property next door hasn't been over to do any of them today, and all four cars are there, so we're getting a little bit worried.
What they encountered inside would quickly unravel into one of the most chilling murder cases in recent New Mexico history. A blood-covered young man stood at the doorway, calm, composed, his hands raised slightly as deputies approached. "Did you call for help?" one officer asked. The man simply replied, "I killed them."
Hello, Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, sir?
My family rushed me
Rushed you where?
in my room
What do you mean?
with a knife.
Come out here real quick then.
Yes, sir.
What are you talking about, dude? Yeah, do you have any weapons on you right now?
Yeah, I do.
Hold on, no, don't reach.
No, I do.
Go on,
I
turn
do.
around.
Yes, sir.
You're just gonna tell me what's going on, okay?
So my family was trying to walk into my room, and they were trying to hit my heart. And my dad had a knife, and my sister had a sledgehammer, and then but however, I found their bodies and their wounds were healed.
Okay.
Do you want me to show you?
In a minute, okay?
We need additional
Inside, the bodies of 57-year-old Adlai Mestre Jr., 52-year-old Maria Mestre, and 17-year-old Juliana Mestre were found brutally stabbed and bludgeoned. The man standing calmly before officers was 18-year-old Adlai Mestre Jr., their son and brother.
No, I can show you where the bodies are.
No, just hold on. Just hold on.
Okay, so
Hey, hold on. We have to detain you in the car, okay?
They're over there, like
Right, okay.
Are they in the house?
No, she looks scary. They were biting their arms, and then there was like hot boiling shit on the ground. Is that normal?
The scene inside the Mestre home was devastating. Blood covered the walls and floors. Furniture was overturned. The family's dog, lifeless, lay near Julianne's bedroom. Officers quickly determined this was not a single outburst, but sustained violence.
Good. Good back there? Yeah. Okay.
Sheriff's Office!
A lot of blood.
Sheriff's Office!
Shell casings.
Body cam footage would later capture Mestre Jr. calmly describing what had happened. "I killed my family. I found their bodies." Despite his eerie composure, he later attempted to slip free from his restraints during processing. Forcing deputies to physically restrain him again.
Stop! Put your hands down. Turn around.
We're gonna die by.
Turn around. Put your hands behind your back. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back.
His statements remained unsettlingly clear. He admitted to the killings repeatedly, never showing panic or confusion.
Do you have any firearms? What kind of firearms? A Glock 19? Tell me what happened inside the house with your mom and dad and sister.
No, I have one more than sister previously. There's no surgery. There's no HIV. There's no control. Messed up. And our family constantly feel heavy.
And when you say you had to, what did you have to do?
Okay, you had to kill him.
Okay.
And they lost consciousness, and I don't know what they do. They're raised, they're rising up. And like, cutting our legs, eating bodies.
They were eating bodies?
Grabbing dogs. And I had to shoot a dog.
You had to shoot a dog?
And I was winning with everything.
Yeah. Sounds like Satan? Okay.
Multiple knives were recovered from the scene. Initial forensic reports suggested blunt force trauma, combined with sharp force injuries.
There's a lot to unpack. We know that he went to Haven and that he had no homicidal or suicidal ideations. This is where I tell you there's so much of the red flag law and competency that's involved.
Neighbors described the Mestre family as quiet, deeply religious, and private. "I would never have imagined this from that boy," one neighbor said. They always kept to themselves. Authorities soon uncovered troubling details about Mestre's mental health history. Earlier in 2024, Adlai Mestre Jr. had been admitted to Haven Behavioral Hospital following a psychological crisis. According to family members, he had experienced paranoia, delusions, and increasingly erratic behavior leading up to his release. Law enforcement officials later confirmed that Mestre's mental health issues had been documented prior to the killings.
Jesus Christ, Christ Jesus, Heavenly Father, please bring Eve to be uttered.
The tragedy raised immediate questions. Could this have been prevented? New Mexico's red flag law was designed precisely for cases like this. Yet as the investigation unfolded, it became clear that no intervention request was ever submitted. Under current state law, only law enforcement or household members may file petitions to restrict firearm or weapon access based on mental health risk. Mental health professionals treating Mestre had no standing to file any such petition, highlighting a deadly gap in enforcement. Following the killings, public safety advocates, lawmakers, and law enforcement officials reignited debates surrounding the state's red flag system.
It's tragic. I mean, you can have guns, you can legally own guns, but if you know somebody in your family might be having a mental health crisis or any type of problem in terms of their mental health, it's time to have those guns taken someplace else.
Sheriff John Allen publicly stated, "There's so much with the red flag law and competency that we need to revisit."
A lot to unpack. We know that he went to Haven and that he had no homicidal or suicidal ideations. This is where I tell you there's so much of the red flag law and competency that's involved.
It's frustrating to know that mental health providers saw him, but couldn't take steps to intervene before this tragedy. Gun reform advocates seized on the case, arguing that behavioral health providers need greater authority to petition courts directly when patients display credible threats. At press conferences, officials expressed frustration that New Mexico's existing law had tied their hands. Family members may have seen troubling warning signs, but lacked clarity on when or how to act. The mental health system saw this unfolding, and yet legally couldn't act on it, one legal expert said. The Mestre case became a flashpoint for national gun law reform debates. The Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office charged Mestre Jr. with 3 counts of first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, extreme cruelty to animals, for killing the family dog, attempted escape from custody, criminal property damage. In court filings, prosecutors described the violence as intentional, prolonged, and systematically carried out. Preliminary hearings included testimony from first responders who found the crime scene saturated with blood, and from forensic technicians describing the brutal nature of the injuries sustained. Mestre appeared in court calm, restrained, and offering little outward emotion. Defense attorneys immediately filed for competency evaluations, citing his lengthy history of psychiatric instability. In December 2024, the court ordered an in-depth psychiatric evaluation to determine Mestre's ability to stand trial.
Mestre's attorney argued he would be better off out of jail under supervision and on the proper medication, but the judge sided with the state, saying Mestre poses a danger to the community and ordered him to be held pending trial.
His defense team argued that he remained actively delusional, incapable of fully understanding the nature of the charges or participating in his defense. Doctors with Haven Behavioral Hospital confirmed that Mestre had previously shown signs of psychosis and had received inpatient treatment earlier in the year. Records indicated that upon release, he was prescribed medication, but adherence to his treatment plan was unclear. In March 2025, a judge ruled that competency restoration services would continue at the state hospital while he remained in custody. Legal experts noted that competency disputes like Mestre's often result in prolonged delays before any trial proceedings can begin. Until competency is restored, the murder charges remain pending without trial dates set. The loss of the Mestre family sent shockwaves through the small community. Friends described Maria as deeply religious, gentle, and generous with everyone.
I noticed that there was this turtle in the bike path, and I stopped and Braylee stopped, and I was like, that wasn't there when we were riding on the way over. So we stopped, and she knew exactly what to do. So she picked up the turtle, and she took it down by the ditch so it could get to the water.
Mestre Sr. was known as a quiet but dependable father. Julianne, just 17, had recently been preparing for college applications, described as bright, sweet, and full of promise. Extended family members, speaking outside the courthouse, expressed both grief and disbelief. How does someone fall apart like this, and nobody sees it soon enough? One uncle asked through tears. At church vigils held in their honor, mourners left candles and flowers while clergy members spoke of forgiveness, but also accountability. The unanswered question lingered. How could so many professionals have seen warning signs, yet been powerless to act? In the aftermath of the killings, state lawmakers introduced amendments to strengthen red flag protections. The proposed reforms would allow mental health providers direct petition authority to initiate protective orders when patients present imminent risks. National advocacy groups like Giffords and Everytown for Gun Safety pointed to the Mestre tragedy as a prime example of preventable violence. One proposed amendment was dubbed Julianne's Law in honor of the teenage victim. It aimed to close gaps allowing dangerous individuals with untreated mental illness continued access to deadly weapons. Red flag laws only work if people can use them before tragedy strikes, one legislator said. This family paid the ultimate price for a legal system still full of holes. The Mestre case also reignited deeper criticism of America's fragmented mental health system. Advocates argued that even when patients receive inpatient care, aftercare coordination often breaks down once they're released. Community-based supervision, medication adherence, and family support services often fail due to limited resources and poor oversight. This was not an isolated mental health crisis. It was a systemic failure, one policy expert said. Lawmakers pushed for increased funding for outpatient services, better long-term psychiatric monitoring, and greater authority for providers to report dangerous behavior directly to law enforcement. The Mestre family's case became a painful example used in national media to illustrate how untreated mental illness can escalate into violence when systems fail. The Mestre murders stand as one of the most haunting examples of preventable violence tied to untreated mental illness. A son, a brother, a patient whose breakdown was seen by multiple professionals, yet intervention never came. For the surviving family members, grief remains overwhelming. And for advocates, Mestre's case continues to fuel national debates over mental health policy, gun reform, and public safety. At its core, the tragedy leaves a haunting question for communities everywhere. How many early warning signs are missed every day? How many families are one crisis away from irreversible loss? And how much longer can outdated systems fail to respond until more lives are destroyed? The Mestre murders reverberated beyond New Mexico, entering the national conversation on mental health, gun access, and systemic accountability. National policy groups seized on the tragedy as a devastating example of preventable violence. Advocacy organizations like Giffords and Everytown for Gun Safety appeared in national broadcasts, highlighting the systemic failures that allowed a young man with a documented psychiatric crisis to live freely with access to weapons. This case exposes the worst-case scenario we've feared for years: a family destroyed because the very professionals who identified the danger lacked the power to intervene, said one gun law advocate on CNN. Legal experts called for a federal review of red flag frameworks, arguing that mental health providers nationwide should be empowered to trigger protective orders when clinical danger signs emerge. The case also raised broader concerns about hospital discharge protocols. Policy analysts argued that institutions often release patients without comprehensive coordination across families, law enforcement, outpatient services, or firearm access reviews. This isn't just a New Mexico problem. The breakdown between mental health providers and public safety is a national blind spot, said a former state attorney general. As proposals for reform moved forward in multiple states, educators and health systems added the Mestre tragedy to training modules, using it as a teaching case in how early intervention windows are routinely missed. But while politicians debated the merits of legislation and news cycles moved forward, the family's quiet grief remained. At a vigil 1 month after the murders, a priest told mourners, "We may fix laws, we may change systems, but nothing will ever bring back this family's laughter." The Mestre case stands as a sobering reminder. Mental health treatment without accountability can be tragically insufficient. Red flag laws only work when access exists, and systemic breakdowns often reveal themselves only after lives are lost. This is vaulted crimes, real stories, real consequences,